Joining us now is Heather Vaikona. She's the president and CEO of a local nonprofit called Lift to Rise. Lift to Rise has a rental assistance fund to help local families in this crucial time of need. Heather, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Gino, for having me.
Before we get to this rental assistance specifically, you guys have been raising money like crazy since the pandemic hit to help out a lot of different people and organizations. So tell us about Lift to Rise.
Sure. So Lift to Rise is a collaborative organization. We work with more than 50 local and regional partners, and our work is really organized around two sides of the same equation. One is that rent is just too high for local residents, and the other is that incomes are too low. And so our North Star, our vision is a future where all families are healthy, stable, and thriving. And so really, Gino, our long-term work is radically increasing the supply of affordable housing through policy and investment interventions. But in the time of COVID-19, we've really stepped up together with partner organizations to try to provide a critical gap for residents that are facing immediate economic collapse. And so what that's looked like before the rental assistance work was an emergency support fund. And now we're really excited to be partnering with Riverside County and the United Way of the Inland Valleys for a really substantial rental assistance fund.
Let's talk about that long-term goal of increased affordable housing. The simple reality out here is land is really valuable. And of course, the closer you are towards 111 or towards the interstate, the more expensive that land gets. And the truth is, you could put a housing track on it and make a lot more money than you're going to make with affordable housing. So if you were to be able to get funding for affordable housing, where would you propose putting it?
Yeah, so I think, Gino, we all know that across the state of California, affordable housing is an absolute crisis. We're in a housing crisis, period, not just in the Coachella Valley. Actually, relatively, the cost of housing in the Coachella Valley is much less expensive than in places like LA or San Francisco. But what we know is that where you live, it has long-term life outcomes. So it's really important that folks have the opportunity to go to good schools, that they have access to health infrastructure, that they're close to a grocery store. So we as an organization and our more than 50 partners really care about increasing the supply of housing in high opportunity areas and simultaneously increasing the supply of housing and institutional infrastructure across the whole entire Coachella Valley.
Right. Is part of the problem overcoming the stigma attached to affordable housing? Because you say affordable housing and people immediately picture Cabrini Greens in Chicago or some of the terrible projects that went up in New York and Philadelphia. So how do you get around that perception that affordable housing means crime-ridden neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think that that NIMBYism is absolutely a problem. And when we think about it, especially in the climate that we're in right now and what's happening nationally across the country, it's really fair to say that NIMBYism is also racism. And if we think about the low-income communities that drive our economy, that make this such a beautiful place to live, many folks are priced out. They're priced out and they're really relegated to the rural fringe of our valley where we don't have amazing transportation infrastructure. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us as we think about our economy that folks just aren't paid enough to be able to support fair and affordable housing. And so we as a society and collectively as a valley, we really need to prioritize in all of our cities the preservation and production of affordable housing, especially for our really hardworking low-income residents that make this such a beautiful place to live.
Yeah, and the reality is here, and again, I don't have actual stats, but there's the very wealthy and then the rest of us that frankly work for the wealthy and the resorts. So is it a challenge to get people to understand nobody's been harder hit in this pandemic than lower income families across the Coachella Valley, regardless of color?
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for us in the Coachella Valley. It's really a challenge for us across the state and really nationally. Low-income folks who are on the front lines of supporting all of us and keeping things going, essential workers who are not being paid and not earning a living wage for the really important work that they do. It really comes down to thinking about what are the policies that we have in place in our municipalities that can increase the preservation and production of affordable housing? What are we investing in that can make the Coachella Valley a more fair and equitable place for everyone who lives here?
You've been raising a lot of money. What's been your main source of funds that have been raised to help out folks during these trying times?
Yeah, I think being really honest, Gino, we've really just been a conduit of partnership, and we've been able to, sometimes we say that we're making stone soup and just cobbling together the efforts of other organizations and really aligning those to be as strategic as possible in supporting residents. This new rental assistance fund is, I think it's something beyond what any of us could have ever conceived because of the leadership of the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. I think it's really important to note that the investment that they've made countywide in rental assistance is, as far as we know, this is the biggest investment of any county with CARES Act funding per capita in rental assistance. $33 million is a lot of money. It's a stark reality that the number of folks who need support most likely greatly outweighs the resources that are available. But really, I think this is much less about Lift to Rise and much more about organizations like the County of Riverside, public agencies, folks like the Desert Healthcare District who have really stepped up and aligned resources. Folks have really worked in lockstep to do this. There's been other, dozens, if not more than 100 now, private contributions and contributions of philanthropic organizations. But I think it's really key to note that more than half of all of the funding we raised in our first fund came from public agencies. And this rental assistance fund, by and large, is it's a product of the leadership of the Riverside County Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, because has a lot of the money dried up that would traditionally have been there because you can't raise it in the ways we had before COVID-19? You can't have luncheons, you can't have big fundraisers, you can't have big events. So for all the charitable organizations here in the Coachella Valley, they almost have to turn now to government entities to continue to be able to help our local residents.
Yeah, Gino, by scales of magnitude, there's always more money in the systems on the ground. And philanthropy and charity really just exists to fill in the gaps and try to really steer the course. But by and large, pre-COVID and now, the investments that are made by public agencies are so incredibly critical. And I think that's one thing that we're really excited about is this investment from the county and the resiliency of families, and seeing other organizations and public agencies making direct investments in the resiliency of families. We see a lot of public investments in other sorts of innovation. And really, it's important when we think about the population that lives here that we're investing in the resiliency of families, because our local families are really what drives the economy year round.
Now, if I'm a family and I'm struggling, how can I get in touch with your organization to get some help out during these tough times?
Yeah, so actually today we're announcing that in the last couple of weeks, we've worked really closely with the United Way of Inland Valleys. The United Way of Inland Valleys and Lift to Rise are the two organizations working with Riverside County on this rental assistance fund. And what we decided sort of a week into it was that we needed to leverage the best of both of our strengths and figure out how to be highly coordinated across the county for the ease of residents who need rental assistance support. So later this evening, hopefully by 7 o'clock, UnitedLift.org will go live. And United Lift is the name of the rental assistance fund that we're operating on behalf of the investment from Riverside County. Residents can go there and there'll be one central application for folks across the county. So Lift to Rise will be supporting residents east of Calamasa all the way to Blythe. And it's also really important to note that we have an additional $2 million from organizations like the Desert Healthcare District and other organizations who have directly invested for the support of Coachella Valley residents. But we are being strongly coordinated with United Ways of Inland Valleys across the entire county. So folks that need support can call 211 as long as they're in the county while they're making the phone call. And there's an initial phone screening and support that way. And then folks can also go to UnitedLift.org and fill out the application there. So the rental assistance fund will be open from this evening until the 25th, and we'll be operating from now until November with a 10-day opening period every month.
All right. Heather Vaikona from Lift to Rise, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time and all you do.
Thank you, Gino. Take care.
We'll be back after the break.